I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It is true that members of the military are expected to follow orders. That's a true thing. That's not the secret. Here's the secret, if you will. And you who have been in the military already know this. You can refuse to follow an order on the basis that it's unlawful, and you can refuse to follow an order on the basis that it's outside of conscience for you. You can do these things. That doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer any consequences as a result. We'll get into that in this video that we're doing today, just following orders on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. By the way, I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Wednesday, the 22nd of September of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on YouTube, on the podcast. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. I would prefer that you watch me there. And again, today we're going to talk on the subject of just following orders. And I'm going to go ahead and go through my notes to give you, again, the sort of encapsulated view, the 30,000-foot view of what I'm going to say today. Unlike what some folks will tell you, there's a good reason to talk about oneself when doing videos of this sort. When I tell you about myself, it's because I want you to understand I have certain kinds of information and experience where the subject we're talking about, being talked about, is concerned. That's certainly the case today. Having spent almost 9 years in the United States Air Force, I well understand the idea of following orders as well as the potential ramifications of failing to do so, right? You can make the distinction between lawful and unlawful orders, but in reality, there's another consideration you must take into account, that must be taken into account. What is it? Whether you can follow orders, legal or not, in good conscience. That said, let's be totally clear. Your inability to follow a lawful order given as a matter of maintaining consistency with your inability to follow a lawful order given as a matter of maintaining consistency with your moral compass does not mean you won't suffer consequences. Excuse me for the stumble there. Could that possibly result even in such, quote, high crimes, end of quote, as treason? I can't find any way to answer that no. That means that even the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff exercising his ability to disobey when orders are something his or her conscience won't bear can be considered to have been potentially guilty of serious lapses, read here, possible crimes as a result. In fact, in a way, maybe that's more possible for such a person. And I can get into that, maybe I will, we'll see. My larger problem is this. When somebody like General Milley refuses an order or plots against the potential actions of the Commander-in-Chief, that would be the President of the United States, he should have the intestinal fortitude to say as much. He should have the intestinal fortitude to say so. When that person fails to do it, fails to say that, we're now in the realm of a covert plot. He or she doesn't have to announce it publicly. In fact, it's preferable that he or she doesn't. Just to ensure his or her boss, in quotes, knows his or her position. For this alone, General Milley should at least be fired, in my opinion. I get you can't use the excuse, I was just following orders. That said, if you refuse to comply, at least have the decency to fess up. Okay, into my notes. Let me get on with what I'm saying here. So, getting back to my time in the military. One of the things that I did while I was in the military was certain schools, professional military education they're called, or PME schools. I don't know if they still do those or not, or how they work anymore for the Air Force, whether they've aligned them more with other services, since I know they were trying to do that sort of thing. Here's what I can tell you. I went through a school called Non-Commissioned Officers Leadership School, and one of the things that you were required to do in that course was march a flight of your classmates. That is, a group of 30 people or whatever, 20, 30 people or whatever it happened to be. Those people could be given orders that technically were lawful orders, to be fair, but that they could not carry out. And when they were told to do something that they weren't able to do, right, the answer that they were told to give you was one simple expression: as you were, sir. That means what you've asked me to do, I can not. Now, that's when you're talking about lawful orders. Or, excuse me, you could say that's when you're talking about unlawful orders. But it actually works for lawful orders in a sense as well. Maybe the expression should not be the same if you have the time to do more. The reason for the expression was you knew that you had limited time to respond to a order given by that individual who was supposed to be marching the flight. He was going to march you off the pad or whatever, right? And that meant that you had the right, if he or she asked you to do something that he or she couldn't, to tell you, as you were, sir, that means I can't follow the order you have currently given me. It's not possible for me to do so. Part of the point of this exercise was to show you that people would ask you to do things that you could not do. I don't think they intended to push the conscience part of this, but I do know that they talked, as many do, about the idea that many of the German soldiers in World War II tried to use the expression, particularly SS people and similar, tried to use the idea, I was just following orders. It's not sufficient, it's not reasonable to say I was just following orders. And let me just tell you something. It's almost certainly true that some of these people were following orders that were, quote, lawful, end of quote, but that the orders in question were still wrong. And even though they were lawful in the German army or the German whatever military of whatever branch, even though they were lawful, they knew them to be morally wrong. Now, I'm going to say this again. If you're in the United States Air Force and you're issued a lawful order and you fail to comply with that lawful order, the fact that it was against conscience for you is not necessarily sufficient reason for you to defy the order. That means that you can get in trouble for that. Let me just point something out to you. As a, quote, civilian, if somebody tells me that I have to kill somebody else when I have no reason to do so, I don't care if there's a law that says that I have to do that. I'm not complying. That means potentially that I could suffer the consequences of not complying with that law, that rule, that regulation, whatever it happens to be. But I'm not going to kill somebody lawfully or otherwise, in fact, by mandate of law or otherwise, if I cannot in good conscience cause that to happen. Okay? And if I have to suffer the consequences for that, I have to suffer the consequences. The same thing is true for the military. I want to get into this other idea, though, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try and do it fairly quickly. I want to get into the idea that it sounds to me like General Milley never talked to Donald Trump about what he was doing. I don't care if you think you're going to be, quote, fired as the commander of the Joint Chiefs, as the head of the Joint Chiefs. I don't care. When somebody asks you to do something that's not in good conscience, or you think they will ask you to do something that's not in good conscience, clearing the air with that person is the right thing to do. It doesn't matter if you're going to get, quote, fired. And if they are of good conscience themselves, what they'll probably do is say, look, you have an option. You can either step down as the commander of the Joint Chiefs, or you can be removed if you refuse to follow my orders. This is what I want for you to understand. The real beef I have with General Milley is very simple. It is that he covertly planned against the President of the United States, and it sounds like he did so in league with the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House could be found seriously criminally liable for that, or could be found liable under the Constitution for that. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, on the other hand, could be found in essence involved in a treasonous plot, treasonous covert plot. I don't care if you like that or not. That's the reality. Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap this up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Wednesday, the 22nd of September of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Thursday, the 23rd of September of 2021. Thank you to everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thanks for coming along today. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a plus or a boxing glove on Rumble to give me a positive Rumble. You can give me a minus or a negative Rumble if you choose to do that. I hope that you only do that if you have pretty good reason to do that. Remember that you can give me a thumbs up, a like on YouTube, or a thumbs down or dislike on YouTube as well. And that you can comment on any platform that has the place to do so, and I will do everything that I can to pay attention to those comments, because that's how I know whether or not what I'm presenting you is worth your time and effort. Subject for today has been following orders, and tomorrow we're going to talk about the subject of equity, which is a loaded term. I just want you to know. Anybody paying attention knows that that's the case. Hope that you're having a good day on this middle of the week, this hump day as a lot of people would put it. I hope that things are going well for you, and I hope that I will see you again on Thursday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Wednesday, the 22nd of September of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.